Should you mix on the Sony MDR-MV1s? In this video, we're going to talk about should you mix on the Sony MDR-MV1s, if you have to mix on headphones, how do they stack up to things you might already have, should you use them? The comfort on these is crazy.
Squishy pads.
These are the first headphone I've ever worn where, if I'm producing music or listening to music for a long time, I kind of just forget they're on my head. The only thing you can even really feel for me is just a tiny bit of pressure here, but it's not painful and it's not annoying or anything. It's just that you feel it. But the pads, even with glasses, there's no clamp force despite getting a good seal for sound quality and stuff. So for me, out of all the headphones I've tried, and I've tried a lot, these are by far the most comfy, and it's not even close. The second comfiest one I've tried for comfort, at least, is the Meze Audio 109 Pros. But the thing is they're pretty heavy. Oh, super comfy. Way comfier than something like the HD 560S from Sennheiser. Again, if we're just talking about comfort, I would say comfort is the number one thing. So if you're doing, all day sessions, you're doing a production or mixing bender, and you got to just have something on your head all day, this is a high contender, especially compared to something like a Audio-Technica M50X, where at least out of the box has a lot of clamp force. I know my Audio-Technica M50s are quite comfy because I just took the headband and just did that. But anyways, Transient Response has a little bit of punch. It's not quite as floppy as some dynamic driver headphones can be. I'll give you an example. These sound better, and we'll get into that from a frequency response perspective. But kick drums, snare drums, they just sound a bit more compressed than they actually are. I'm not going to say you get a good... It's still not extremely good of a transient response, but it is much better on something like the Sonys. Okay, so yeah, another reason why you should consider mixing on these is a great headphone for stereo width and imaging. It does some cool magic that I have not heard on other headphones. A good example is if you have the opportunity to demo these, you don't get the 3 blob effect like you do on some headphones, like the Sennheiser HD 650s, which are known for that. On the box, it is branded as something to use for Sony's 360-degree spatial mixing stuff. So maybe that has a reason why the imaging is really good. I'm curious what people think about spatial mixing and that kind of thing. I've only ever tried Apple AirPods spatial audio stuff, and holy moly, that was a gimmick. All they did, I'm guessing at least, is they just put convolution reverb all over pre-done mixes and then just panned it left to right if you move your head. Is the dumbest thing to me. I don't understand why you would just put a bunch of reverb on top of a song to make it sound more like you're in a room and then just pan it with your head moving. One of the few benefits of listening to music on headphones is that, unlike speakers, you're always in the sweet spot. You can move your head around, get comfy. So these are open back headphones, but despite that, they have some competent bass, more than some closed back headphones. Yeah, if you wanted to get an open back headphone for listening or mixing, but you didn't want it to be as boring like an HD 650. I mean, but if you didn't want to have a flaccid low end like HD 650 from Sennheiser, then this is something to look into. They're also extremely easy to drive. So if you are a iOS tablet, iPad producer, this might be something to consider because you don't need any headphone amp or anything like that. Usually when review channels say that an iPhone dongle is all you need, in my experience, they're almost always wrong, at least on the headphones I've tried. And I don't know if it makes a difference, but I have an old iPhone, so I'm using the lightning cable dongle. Maybe the USB-C one is better. It probably is. But for example, okay. People say that this is easy to drive and an Apple dongle is all you need. HD 560S? Yeah, no. Well, okay, it's not awful, but you can scale it up and it can sound much better on say my Universal Audio Apollo audio interface. These sound really good. I'll put it this way. When listening to Apple Music on my MacBook Pro, just straight into the headphone jack on the MacBook, I only have to put this at the second notch, from mute, 2 up. And it is sufficient volume on most songs and stuff. Kind of crazy how much volume you got on this. So yeah, you actually can drive it off of just anything. You will get the most out of the stock sound, which we got to talk about because it needs... It's better than some headphones out of the box. Okay, very specific use case here, but if you are mixing music that has a lot of instruments going on, a lot of different sounds, say really, really heavy dubstep or drum and bass or metal or rock, that kind of thing, these headphones do a crazy job of like separating the sounds. And so you can hear every sound very well defined, even though, like I say, frequency response and tonality out of the headphone, out of the box, needs a bit of work. It's really hard to describe. Yeah, a good example. So listen to a song that is harmonically rich, has a lot of stuff going on, a headphone you're familiar with, and then listen to it on these if you can, and you'll see what I mean. A good example of this specifically is Must I Chaos Slow Boy remix. This song has so many things going on. It's one approach to music that I really enjoy, where there's so much stuff going on that you kind of have to listen to it a few times to fully digest all the sounds. Even on a new pair of headphones, even being familiar with the song, sometimes I'll have to kind of like listen a few times to really, it's got a lot of replayability, so you can focus on different sounds. It's just easier to hear all the sounds at once on the Sony MDR-MV1s. It's I wish I had the vocabulary for it. Some headphones, even if they sound good, they can get like overwhelmed. And I don't know if this is because of the driver they're using, but it seems like certain headphones, the driver can get overwhelmed. The most important reason why you should mix on the Sony MDR-MV1s is if you have access to EQ. I have Sound ID reference or whatever it's called, and they have a EQ profile that greatly just automatically fixes some of the frequency response issues. So that's something to look into. But no, like it makes it go from kind of unusable if you're a headphone frequency response snob like me, because it's got some crazy weird peaks and stuff. But with EQ, it's one of my favorite headphones to listen to frequency rich, especially like distorted music, like, death step, extremely heavy metal, that kind of thing. Why I would not mix on these? Well, for one, if you do not have access to EQ or you don't plan on using EQ, I would not use this headphone. But to be fair, I would not use pretty much all of the branded as for studio use headphones that I've tried. And to be honest, even the best headphones from a frequency response standpoint that I've heard, I still wouldn't really trust without EQ. But if you're someone who really doesn't want to use EQ, there are much better options. Most things from Sennheiser have a nice tonality out of the box. If you're a brain rot bass head like I am, then they might be a little bit lean in the bass, but inside your DAW on the master, you could always just put a bit of a bass boost and then remember to turn it off. But yeah, if you're on the go and you don't want to use EQ or you don't want to have any other software running in the background, I would highly recommend the HD 560S. They're like half the price of the Sonys, and they often go on sale. I got mine for like 40% off or something like that. And if I really had to have one headphone with no EQ, this would be it so far. It's very similar to the HD 600 line sound-wise, but it actually has bass. It doesn't roll off in the bass, and it has sprinkly high treble, because I know that's what a lot of people don't like about the HD 650, kind of a roll off in the treble. If you've seen Resolve talk about the HD 650 on like the Headphone Show YouTube channel, the HD 650 isn't necessarily lacking in the treble. I know mine isn't lacking in the treble, but it just sounds wrong, even though it graphs. It just doesn't sound right. But the 560S does, for the most part. Probably my absolute favorite way to listen to dubstep and EDM right now is with EQ on the Sonys, because there's a characteristic of some headphones where they sound really soft and other headphones sound really sharp. A lot of people say that this is down to like the frequency response, but I think there's more to it than that. I think it's attack and decay of the driver, maybe the materials hitting your head. I know every headphone I've ever had that has like soft velour pads sounds really soft to me. So I'm assuming part of that is just because there's something soft on my head. Like compared to like closed backs that have like leather pads, or maybe the material is more reflective and so it's a bit more bright and shiny and sharp sounding. I don't know. But anyways, there's like a certain foamy soft sound that especially Sennheiser headphones have, where even when they're tonally correct and like the frequency response is good, no peaks or dips, that kind of thing, it just sounds soft. Like that would be pretty much my only complaint besides discomfort on the 560S is it sounds like they magically got styrofoam to make sound. Like it just sounds foamy and soft. It's accurate, but it's like soft. My point here is that with the Sonys, despite having like, gushy soft pads and having a bit of a soft sound, they still sound fun, engaging, and a little bit sharp. And I gotta say, it's like the best of both worlds. Like for some listening sessions, my Audio-Technica M50s, they're just a little too like sharp sounding, even with corrected EQ. So I'm not talking frequency response necessarily, but it's just the driver sounds kind of sharp. And then on the Sennheisers, they're just a little too soft. When it comes to ASMR and certain genres of music and stuff, for ASMR, I just do not get tingles on most Sennheiser headphones that I've tried. And when it comes to music, like I actually like the sound of the Sennheiser HD650. I have never felt emotion ever when listening to music on them. I just don't feel anything. Nothing. And I always accounted that to the kind of soft sound. But like I say, these have a bit of a soft sound as well. And I've had some really fun listening sessions on these, and I've had fun making distorted music on them. It calms some of the fatigue of dubstep with still being like engaging and stuff. It's strange. So the thing is, for their price, there's other things on the market to look into that unfortunately at this time of the video, I have not had the pleasure of reviewing. The main one that I would consider looking into if you haven't already is the Sennheiser HD 490 Pro. And the reason why I say that is because a few things. People go on and on about the comfort of that headphone. It's apparently way more comfortable than other Sennheiser headphones. So it may be almost as comfy, maybe even comfier, but like on par with the Sonys, but probably has a better frequency response out of the box. So if you're not going to use EQ, might be a better choice. And who knows, maybe it's just a better choice, and it's around the same price, depending on if you get the like Pro Plus package with the extra pads and case and all that. But yeah, and then especially if you're watching this video in the future, when the 490s have been out for a little bit, they may go on sale as well, and they might end up being cheaper. Not familiar enough with Sony's line to know if they really do sales or not. But with EQ, this is a solid contender in this price range. ASMR, if you're listening to ASMR with or without EQ, these are fantastic. They're comfy enough that you can actually listen to them in bed even, which most over-ear headphones, there's no way you're doing that. So yeah, listening to ASMR, producing ASMR might be a solid choice. I can't speak on gaming, unfortunately, because I have some muscle issues. I don't play online games anymore. But I would say, at least from a imaging aspect, it might be really fun for competitive games just because it's so like 360 sounding, or for immersive games at the very least. Yeah, and then one of the issues is it has a lot of like boosted upper treble in a kind of unnatural way, hence why you need EQ. But that boosted upper treble might be really cool for twigs breaking and that kind of thing in games. But like I say, I can't speak too much on it. Distorted fun music is what I like to listen to them on. Listen to that Slowboy remix if you want a demo of how it deals with lots of things going on. If you want a more audiophile demo to listen to, this sounds good on any headphone, even a cheap cost headphone, is Like What by Tennyson. That is like the ultimate audiophile demo. Guarantee that's a better demo than the one you have. Very confident in saying that. Actually, no, I'm not. But every type of like audiophile cue you could think of in one song. But yeah, like I say, I gotta say, I've bought a bunch of headphones lately. Some quite a bit more expensive than these, and quite a bit cheaper. The ones I want to use at the end of the day for watching TV and for listening to music with EQ are the Sonys. For me personally, I'm not going to be mixing on them. I would recommend it with EQ. I think that covers everything. I don't want to have to edit more, so see ya.